All right, it's time to begin class. Lonnie is still in a meeting at Piney Grove, so no computers, no maps, just exciting Colby up here. Old school, that's right. Back to the old days. No, I won't neither. No, I do enough of that during the daytime. All right, so you can go ahead and turn your Bibles to Judges chapter 13. Judges chapter 13 will be where we're going to begin. Is the microphone, is it working? Okay. So we've been in Judges for a pretty good while now, and we've rehearsed this several times, but as short of a period of time as what we stay in Judges, I think it would be beneficial every time we're in it to go back through the Judges again. Can we go through them without looking at them? Can y'all go through the Judges without looking up to Samson? That's your cue to go. Very good. Y'all act like y'all have done that for a few years. So, we went through last time, we finished Jephthah, and then we very briefly covered Ibzan, Elon, and Abdon, because there's just not a whole lot of information given there to us in the latter part of chapter 12 about those men, other than they were wealthy. How do we know that? Right. There you go. They had donkeys. They had a lot of children. So we know that they were probably pretty wealthy, prominent men. But not a whole lot more information is given to us about them. And then we come to chapter 13, and we're introduced to a man named Manoah. And he is from Zorah, of the family of the Danites, it says. And we're given some information here about his wife, about Manoah's wife. And what do we know about her? Yes, she was barren and hadn't had any children. And, as I was listening back to Lonnie teach this several years ago, he made mention of the fact how interesting it was how many well-known, prominent men in the Bible we see that their mother was barren and had no children until God had something to do with it. That's just kind of an interesting note there. But Manoah's wife, an angel of the Lord appeared to her. And we talked about a good bit about this angel of the Lord last time. And if you just look close at it, she didn't at first call him an angel. What did she call him? A man of God. So that would indicate to us that she really did not know to what extent, I guess you would say, this man was of God. She didn't know if he was a prophet or just an angel or what he was. And neither did her husband. But we do know that after this angel appeared to her, he told her that she was going to have a what? A son. And we find out what kind of son that's going to be. He's going to be a Nazarite. Now, really and truly, we're given three main things that Nazarites are supposed to abide by. What is one of those things? Not to cut their hair. And that's going to be I guess you would call the main one here, was Samson. All right, what's another one? All right, not only no liquor, but they can't have anything in any form of something off of a vine, right? So that would include grapes, raisins, wine, anything that grew on a vine, they were not to have. All right, so they weren't to cut their hair. They could not have anything of the vine, and one more. Couldn't touch anything that was dead, any dead body or carcass. And we don't really see that one. Gerald made mention of, he posed the question last time, that we don't really see that one pop up here when we're talking about Samson. But that was part of of the Nazarite vow. All right, so he's going to be a Nazarite, and he's going to be unique because, first of all, he's going to be given a unique job. And what is his job going to be that God gives him? He's going to deliver his people from the Philistines. That is right. If you remember, when Jephthah was fighting the Ammonites, they were also being oppressed from the west by the Philistines. They were being oppressed from every direction. They had the Ammonites coming from the east. They had the Philistines coming from the west. So Jephthah was taking care of these Ammonites, and now we're going to see Samson begin to take care of the Philistines. Now, we're going to know later on that he's not going to finish the job of defeating the Philistines, because the Philistines are going to be a oppressor of Israel, or an enemy of Israel, all the way to the days of David. But he is given this job of beginning to deliver the people from the hand of the Philistines. All right, he's unique for that, and he's also unique because he's going to be a Nazarite for life. Most of the time, there were other Israelite men who were Nazarites, but most of the time, a Nazarite was given that vow. That's what it was. It was a vow. He took that vow for only a short period of time, right? And then the vow ended after that time was up. But not Samson. Samson is going to be one of the three men in the Bible that we know of, are pretty confident, that are Nazarite, take the Nazarite vow for life. You've got him, and then you've got John the Baptist before him. Lonnie mentioned him last class. Samuel. All right, those are the three men. But Samson is going to be the first one that we're going to see that's going to be a Nazarite for life. All right, so that's what the angel of the Lord came and told Manoah's wife. Well, she could not hold that in, right? She runs and she tells her husband. All right, so her husband, he shows quite a bit of faith here by believing what she tells him. And if you look in verse 7, it says, he said to me, behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. This is her talking to her husband. He said to me, behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. Now, no drink, no wine or similar drink, nor eat anything unclean, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb to the day of his death. All right, then we're going to get to verse 8. And that's where I told you that we were going to pick up with tonight's lesson. So she has told Manoah what has happened. Manoah wasn't there when this happened. So here's what he does in verse 8. He prays to the Lord and said, O my Lord, please let the man of God whom you sent come to us again, and teach us what we shall do for the child who will be born. So we see here the faith of Manoah. You know, a lot of times when men are presented with this type of information, what do we try to do? When we have a problem or when there's something that we're not sure of, what do we try to do? We try to solve it ourselves. We try to take the bull by the horns, or as Lonnie calls it, try to get it on God's end of the stick. And Manoah doesn't do that. He displays an attitude that I think we all should display when something like this comes up. His attitude is, you tell us what we shall do with the information that we're given. And we're gonna see that come up again here, just a couple of more verses. I'm going to stop right there and give y'all time to make any comments about the review that I did, or anything up through verse 8 before we go on. All right, verse 9. God listened to the voice of Manoah, and the angel of God came to the woman again as she was sitting in the field. But Manoah, her husband, was not with her. So that was just Manoah's luck, right? He wasn't there the first time, so he prays, asks him to come again, and he does, and Manoah's not there again. Verse 10, it says, the woman ran in haste and told her husband and said to him, look, the man who came to me the other day has just now appeared to me. So she ran to him and she says, he's back. So she goes and she gets him. And Manoah comes back and he comes up to this man that is perceived to be a man of God. And in verse 12, Manoah said, now let your words come to pass. What will be the boy's rule of life and his work? So there again, we see Manoah's attitude is not to try to get on God's end of the stick and take care of his of this himself. He is a man that is asking right here for God's will to be done. I guess that's a good way to put it. So the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, of all that I said to the woman, let her be careful. She may not eat anything that comes from the vine, nor may she drink wine or similar drink, nor eat anything unclean. All that I commanded her, let her observe. So what stands out to me here is how the angel of the Lord is showing Manoah how important this is. Right. Because she's got to keep him clean until he's born. That's exactly right. So Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, please, let us detain you, and we will prepare a young goat for you. Now, is this the first time that we have seen anybody do this right here? Abraham did it. Who else? Entertaining angels. Lot, did you say it? That's who I was thinking of too. So we've seen this happen before. Manoah says, we want you to stay, and we're going to prepare a meal for you. We're going to prepare a young goat for you. But then the angel of the Lord he's going to get right to the punch here. He's going to let Manoah know exactly this is where he begins to let him know exactly who he is. It says, the angel of the Lord, and I'm in verse 16, the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, though you detain me, I will not eat your food. But if you offer a burnt offering, you must offer it to the Lord. So in other words, what he's saying here is, I'll stay, but I'm not going to partake of your meal. But if you do want to offer something, offer it to the Lord as a burnt offering. Hint, hint. So he's trying to hint to him here. He's beginning to hint to him that this is God that he's talking to, the angel of the Lord that he's talking to. And Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "What is your name, that when your words come to pass, we may honor you?" And the angel of the Lord said to him, "Why do you ask my name, seeing it is wonderful?" So what does the angel say his name is here? Yeah, I don't. I might have misspoke there. I don't think he's necessarily saying he's named wonderful. But most of the time in the Bible, when we see wonderful used in this context like this, it has something to do with God. That person he's an angel of God, or he's got something to do with God. In the New Testament, we see this same language used when we talk about Jesus sometimes. Good teacher, you know, and language like that. So again here, this man he's insinuating to Manoah here who he is, who he's talking to. All right. Get to verse 19. Manoah takes the goat with a grain offering, and he offered it upon the rock to the Lord. And he did a wondrous thing while Manoah and his wife looked on. So the one that was wonderful has done a wondrous thing. It happened as the flame went up toward heaven from the altar, the angel of the Lord ascended in the flame of the altar. When Manoah and his wife saw this, they fell on their faces to the ground. Okay, so now they know. The angel of the Lord, so Manoah offers up this goat on a rock. Now, did the rock, are we told that it had any wood on it? No, we're not. Are we told that he had a match or lighter or anything like that to light this fire? No. There's no indication here that there's anything humanly possible that could do this. But we do know that anytime God takes a sacrifice and he calls down fire, what does that normally mean? It means he accepts it. That's right. He accepts it as something that is good. And that is what Manoah and his wife see, and they fall on their faces to the ground. So at this point, they know that this is not just any ordinary man, that this is the angel of the Lord. It doesn't say a angel, it's the angel of the Lord. And we're talking about God here. Any comments up to that point? Either I have bored y'all to death or I'm doing a really good job, one of the two. Okay. So they know who he is now. And I want you to look at their reaction. Manoah said to his wife, "We shall surely die because we have seen God." Now we've seen this happen before. You remember at Mount Sinai when God spoke. What did the people feel? What was their reaction? They were right. They were afraid they were going to die because of God's holiness. So we see here that Manoah and his wife, they have a reverence for God, don't they? They see the holiness of God. But look at what his wife says. She shows tremendous faith here in 23. She said, I don't know if we are going to die, because if the Lord had desired to kill us, he would have not accepted a burnt offering and a grain offering from our hands. Nor would he have shown us all these things, nor would he have told us such things as these at this time. So, told us these things. What has he told them that is going to happen that hasn't came to pass yet? She's going to have a son. So, based upon that faith, she says, you know, I don't know if we are going to die, because if he was going to kill us, he would have already killed us. But these things are going to come to pass. Lonnie brought this up in the lesson that I went back and listened to. When in the New Testament, when Jesus's apostles or his disciples were in the boat and the storm came along, what was their reaction? Fear. What were they afraid of? They were afraid they were going to die, right? But then what did Jesus tell them? Oh, you of little faith, right? So what grounds did they have to base their faith on? What were they told before that occasion that they were going to do? Yes, arrive on the other side. So that faith that they were taught that they should have is the same faith that we see in Manoah's wife here. So we see that she had tremendous faith. All right. So the right. Same language. Right. Right. Absolutely. Yep. That's a good point. Anything else? Up to verse 24. All right. So in verse 24, the woman bore a son, and she called his name Samson. And the child grew, and the Lord blessed him, and the Spirit of the Lord began to move upon him at Manaah Dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. So here we have our next judge born. Let me make sure that there's nothing that I'm missing that I was going to bring it. Yeah. All right. So this land that it says that the Spirit of the Lord began to move upon him at Mahanaim Dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. Without Lonnie's maps up here, that might not mean a whole lot to us. But what is the significance of this location? What's it right next to? Philistine territory. That's right. So right here beside where this nation of people are oppressing the Israelites is where God is bringing up this deliverer. This is where he's born and where the Spirit starts moving upon him. All right. Any questions, comments through chapter 13? Yeah. Yeah. Good. And he's still. Yeah. Very true. All right. Samson went down to Timnah and saw a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. So Timnah is a place that was once Israelite territory, but it's not anymore. Over the years, through the apostasy that has taken place, Philistines have began to occupy that land. And Samson goes there, and he sees this woman in Timnah, and she's a Philistine woman. Verse 2, he went up, told his father and mother, saying, I've seen a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore get her for me as a wife. This is where I began to see a characteristic here of Samson that maybe sometimes I show a lot. And it's not a good characteristic. What do you think I'm calling to mind here? Not just rebellious, but start selfishness is what I'm thinking. Listen to how selfish he sounds here. I see this woman, go get her for me. Now, that might be a little different than the way we date or we court nowadays in today's time. The way a man and woman come together now is not how man and woman came together back during ancient times. What would happen is their parents would come together, and they would bring the young man and the one young woman together. So he insists on them to get him this Philistine woman. Okay, it was against the law, and that brings up a point that I was going to talk about here. Well, I'll just go ahead and speak of it now. It was against the Mosaic law for the Israelites to marry a Canaanite, or I think there was some more there. I don't know exactly which ones it was. Somebody else may be able to comment there. But the Philistines, Dwight, are not listed among that group of people that they were in the Mosaic law that they were forbidden to marry. Now, it wasn't recommended that they marry them. Why would that be? Why do you think? I'll go ahead and read verse 3 to kind of shed a little more light on this. Then his father and mother said to him, Is there no woman among the daughters of your brethren or among all my people that you must go and get a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? And Samson said to his father, Get her for me, for she pleases me well. Why would it not be good? Even though the Philistines were not one of the nations that God forbid them to marry, why would it not be good? Idol worshippers. That's exactly right. The false gods that they worshipped were going to be a tremendous influence on the Israelite people. So even though that lawfully, and that is from the way I studied, Dwight, and if anybody finds any different, let me know. But it was not against the law to marry a Philistine, but it was highly destructive. But and that may be the reason. Yeah. Right. Right. Timnah was an Israelite city before the Philistines moved in there. So that kind of ties together. But the main point here is whether it was lawful or not, he didn't need to be pursuing a wife from this group of people, because they had no respect for Jehovah God. They worshiped other gods, false gods. And that's why his father and mother insisted that he not do it. The latter part of verse 3, get her for me, for she pleases me well. Anybody have a footnote for she pleases me well? All right. She looks good to me. Anybody else got a different one? She is right in my eyes. Does that language sound familiar? What's the whole theme of the book of Judges? Everybody did right in their own eyes. So here is the judge, the deliverer. that's doing what's right in his own eyes. But there's something here that is unknown. It's unknown to his parents. And that's the fact that God is going to take this selfishness that I mentioned a while ago. He's going to take this foolishness of Samson, and he's going to use that to carry out his plan. Our foolishness and our sin that we choose to partake in, this is an important lesson right through here for us. Our foolishness and our rebelliousness is not going to stop God from carrying out his plan. Now, it's going to hurt us in the long run, but it's not going to stop God's plan. He's going to find a way to use it for his plan to be carried out. And that's what we're going to see happen here. Verse 4. His father and mother did not know that it was of the Lord that he was seeking an occasion to move against the Philistines. For at that time the Philistines had dominion over Israel. So God knew how Samson was, didn't he? He knew how selfish he was and what he was truly wanting here. It's not like Samson went and found this woman and said, you know what? I think she would be a good helper for me. She's smart. She would be a good helper. She would help me make good decisions. That's not what he was basing his facts on, was it? What was he basing his opinion on here? He was using what he saw with his eyes. That's right. And God knew that. But little did his father and mother know that God was going to use that quality that Samson has to further carry out his plan. And that was to do what? Deliver the Philistines. All right, questions, comments through verse 4. All right, verse 5. So Samson went down to Timnah with his father and mother, and came to the vineyards of Timnah. Now to his surprise, a young lion came roaring against him, and the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and he tore the lion apart as one would have torn apart a young goat, though he had nothing in his hand, but he did not tell his father or his mother what he had done. So he goes back down to Timnah again, and his father and mother obviously accompany him down there, but we see that on this occasion they're not together. Samson is by himself when this young lion, which tells us that this lion is going to be in its prime, and we don't have to go through what a lion is like. We know what a lion, they're powerful. Nobody in here, I don't believe, thinks they could take on a lion. But here this young lion in its prime jumps out at Samson, and he tears it apart like it's a kid. So what does Samson find out? I don't know to what extent he knew this before this story, but what does he find out here? He finds out that he's got some type of super strength, doesn't he? I mean, this is not something that's ordinary. But he didn't tell his father or mother what he had done. So he goes down and he talks with the woman, and she pleased Samson well. In other words, he really, not only did he think she was beautiful, obviously he likes her. Okay, he begins to like her even more. And then after some time, when he returned to get her, when he came back to get her, he turned aside, and there's the carcass of this lion that he had slain. And what was inside that lion? A swarm of bees and some honey. That's right. Now, what do we already know about this Nazirite vow? Yeah, it was unclean. And, I know, going back, I think, Steve, I think it was you when I went back and listened to this lesson years ago that brought up the question, maybe he didn't touch the carcass when he got the honey. But really and truly, whether or not he did or not, I don't we're not going to make an argument there because we don't know what he touched and what he didn't. But what I think we do know from this right here is what type of attitude is he displaying? He's kind of careless, isn't he? If he's got this Nazirite vow, he's not doing a whole lot to really take care of it, is he?
One part, we're looking at it through what we think should be done. But in the whole conversation of all of it, there's never mention that God condemned him for what he'd done.
Right.
And if he had done such a bad deal against the vow, I think God would even actually brought it out and actually chastised him, because you look at all the other different judges and even rulers and even Moses and Aaron and his sons. When they did something bad, I mean, it wasn't like we had to figure out whether they were doing something wrong. God actually either destroyed them or wouldn't let them go into the promised land. He took care of it, but he told us in the Word, and by him letting him live all the way up to the point later on we see when he's tied between the temple posts, he's actually judging as God wants him to destroy the Philistines and get the part of the Israelites turned around from idolatry. Even though he made a lot of bad choices with women and all that, he still, his heart was in serving God.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that, not one bit, and that may very well be the case. Well, that's true, and I think that's sort of the way I look at it in this case. Is we're not told every single time. Take, like Lonnie mentioned, take for example when he goes to the harlot's house. He's not condemned for that either at that point in time. But he is when he cuts his hair. So I don't, maybe we're not told every time. But what the point that I would like to make here is just kind of the attitude that Samson displays, and the fact that he doesn't seem to be really taking that Nazirite vow as serious as what a Nazirite vow should be taken. Yeah. All right. Let's go to verse 9. He took some of the honey in his hands and went along eating. When he came to his father and mother, he gave some to them, and they also ate, but did not tell them that he had taken the honey out of the carcass of the lion. And that might be what you're talking about there, Rita, is the fact that, well, that might be one reason he didn't tell them, is because of the vow he had taken. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. hmm I'm going to kind of paraphrase a little bit right through here, through this middle section, instead of just reading it. But it's at this point that there's a feast that takes place. It's a 7-day feast, evidently, that takes place when a young man and a young woman are going to marry. And at this point in time, at this feast, uh, the Philistines there want to bring 30 friends to be with Samson. They want to bring 30 companions there to be with him. And while those 30 are there with him, Samson gives them this linen to solve. And he puts quite a bit on the line here. If they can solve this riddle, he's going to give them 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothing. But if they can't solve that riddle, then they're going to give him 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothing. Now, I don't know how many changes of clothes I have. I don't know how many changes of clothes y'all have. But this is quite a wager here, because in ancient times, if you had more than one change of clothes, you were pretty well off. If you had more than 2 changes of clothes, you were even more well off. So you were pretty wealthy if you had all these changes of clothes. So there's a lot.
You get 30 changes of clothes, you probably have more than the kings had at that time.
Yeah, there's a lot riding on this. Okay, the riddle, verse 14. Out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. So they're having to solve this riddle for this wealth. Basically, is what's happening. And for 3 days, it says they couldn't explain it. But then on the 7th day, they wanted to know so bad. What do? Yes, they go to his wife and they tell her, entice your husband that he explained the riddle to us. Or what are they going to do? They're going to burn her and her father's house with fire. Now hang on to that thought, because that's going to come full circle toward the end of this story. So, what does she do? She weeps on him and she says, "Oh, you only hate me. You don't love me. You've posed a riddle to the sons of the people, but you've not explained it to me." And she gives him sort of this sob story to try to get this riddle out of him. And verse 17 says, "Now when she had wept on him the 7 days while their feast lasted, and it happened on the 7th day that he told her, because she pressed him so much, and then she explained the riddle to the sons of her people." So she finally pressed on Samson so hard until he finally told her. And then what does she turn around and do? She turns around and gives it away to them. And then verse 18. So the men of the city said to him on the 7th day before the sun went down, "What is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion?" And he knew then what had happened. He said, "If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle." So basically, what he's telling them here is, I know you cheated in order to get this. So he's going to do something. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly how he knew. So because of that, because of their unfairness, he's going to try to take out his revenge on them. So he's going to go down to Ashkelon in verse 19. And what does he do in Ashkelon? He killed 30 men and took the changes of clothes off those 30 men, and he took them back to give them to those 30 men that he had made this wager with back at the feast. Now, I don't know what those clothes might have looked like after he had done that, but those are the clothes that he took back and gave them, clothes that he didn't have to pay for. So here we see that bloodshed is finally comes into this as well. Yep. And we'll close out with this. And this is going to be pretty important for when we pick up next time. After he took this anger out on them, where did he go? He went back home. He went back to his father's house because he was angry. But it was known that he was angry. And it was especially known to his wife's father. He's going to know, because he is going to give Samson's wife to one of the other men who was supposed to be what we would call Samson's best man in the marriage. We're going to find out next time when Samson goes back down there that the father's not going to give her to him because because Samson got so angry, he thinks that Samson is done with her. He don't think Samson wants to marry her anymore. So he gives her to another man. And that story will continue next time. Thank y'all.
Thanks for watching. If you found this video to be beneficial, please follow us on Facebook or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to share it with others that you feel like may benefit from it. If you need to contact us, please contact us via email at quinn.church@yahoo.com. Also, if you're in the area, we would love for you to come visit with us at one of our assemblies. Have a good day.